Now it's going. Now we're live. I think.
And coming to you.
Coming to you live from the
From
internet.
Studio 7.
Studio 3. Or
Studio 3.
Studio,
This is actually...
Studio 2.5. How's that? That sounds better.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, this would be almost our Studio...
2.5?
Well, yeah, 2.5.
Yeah, because
we'll
I mean,
2.5.
I'm not near the other
Well,
studio,
when you
but
count
you
the
are.
virtual. When you count the virtual. We did the virtual studio, right?
Yeah,
So you could say maybe our...
2.75. I mean, literally,
2.7.
when we were doing the virtual stuff, I was like right here. So like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's true. Well, guys, welcome back to Testing Normal.
Woo!
This is episode 61. This
61.
is Curtis.
This is Jordan.
It's a podcast where we talk about anything and everything we want to.
Yep. I can't believe we made it this far. We haven't killed each other yet. Other people have predicted it. They predicted us killing each other by now.
No way, man. No way. We only made each other stronger.
It's true.
So, guys, last week we had a proposition and we asked people to give us ideas as who would be an interesting person to kind of delve into this week and test the norm of that individual a little bit and explore that person. And we had some really good recommendations. We had people throwing out historical figures like Galileo. We had some people talk about current people like Trump.
Trump.
And also Elon Musk, Nikola Tesla, Alan Turing, the guy that kind of invented the computer test to see if they have sentience or consciousness.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize the tie between him and NVIDIA's Turing cores in their recent chips. I never really
the name
drew that together.
Yeah. So, anyways, we ended up going with a character that's pretty well known, and they've even made some like Netflix series about this individual. But he's just an interesting dude, and his life is actually pretty interesting. And so I wanted to scratch the surface of this person. The person we're going to be bringing to you today is none other than Mr. Marco Polo. Mr. Marco Polo. Very interesting gentleman. Very interesting gentleman. So, I'm just going to throw out there, just going to start with it, Mr. Marco Polo. Now, a lot of people, maybe younger generations just know the swimming game, Marco Polo, like they've heard that sound. There's a fine-looking gentleman right there. Jordan just put him up. But this guy's life was pretty crazy. He started out barely knowing his father when he was only a few months old. He was born in 1254, and his father, Nicola,
a long time ago.
Or Niccolo, he was born in Venice, and his father, Niccolo, and uncle Maffeo left Italy on a trading excursion to Asia, and then they returned when he was only 15 years old. So basically, from the time Marco Polo was born to the time he was 15, Marco Polo had no clue who his dad was. Never met him. And during that time, also, his mother passed away and died. They don't know exactly. They don't have history. I haven't been able to find facts exactly when his dad died, or his mom died. Sorry. But his mother passed away. His dad was on a trip to Asia, so kid didn't really know his parents. Raised by his uncle and aunt.
Which is crazy. They were gone. They were gone for a long time. Like
I mean, from 1254 to 1269, right?
They were like, "Here's a kid wife, and I'm gonna peace out now and go to China."
Yeah. So dad was gone for 15 years.
Can you imagine doing that?
Yeah, we're leaving your newborn son for 15 years. Yeah. I mean, I guess in the military you have to leave your kids for years at times.
Not that long.
But not 15 usually.
Not 15 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, and although he was basically a stranger to Marco, the dad, and Marco decided to go back on another excursion because, mom's dead.
It was the dad and the uncle that traveled together. Like they were out doing crazy stuff.
So Marco joined them after only knowing his dad for a year or so, and they went back traveling east to the Far East to Asia. And they ended up being on this trip for more than 20 years. So leaving your home at the age of 15
Yeah.
and being gone for over 20
It
years,
was 24
he,
somewhere in there.
yeah, decided to travel with his pops.
After not knowing
And
him, I mean, basically traveling with a stranger.
yeah,
I mean,
right.
not a stranger for long.
Yeah, but he was the only piece of like identity he could cling to was his dad, right? So
Right, or
what else did he have?
he had his aunt and uncle that raised him for a little while.
Right.
But I mean, to
Yeah,
leave
that's true.
that what you know, like the we see kids today that get brought up by other people and they become like
Right.
their parents. Can you imagine like leaving what like it's all you know of your parents to go on a 24-year journey? Maybe you didn't know. I wonder if they even knew it was going to take that long.
Maybe. But traveling, the interesting thing is a lot of people attribute Marco Polo to being one of the first Europeans to travel to Asia. And interestingly enough, he wasn't. It was
Hmm.
basically 20 years or more than 20 years before he left, um, a Franciscan monk by the name Giovanni da Pian, um, traveled to East China to try to convert Mongols,
Right.
and he basically later was followed by several other monks that tried to convert people to Christianity. So they were basically the kind of the forefront of explorers in Eastern Asia was actually more so monks and people of religious kind of fervor,
Which
which
is
is interesting.
interesting because Khan, or who was like I can't remember his first name, but like
Genghis?
not Genghis, it was his grandson is who they went to see.
Oh no, it was his. I believe it was his son
It said
actually.
everywhere I looked said
Was it
grandson.
grandson?
It was his
Oh, maybe it was grandson. Yeah,
um
Kublai Khan.
yeah, and so he
Kublai
was
Khan.
actually
Yeah.
interested in Christianity. So like
Well, he was interested in. He was actually open to many religions,
right. But that
which
was he wanted to hear
we'll go
about
into
some of
more.
those, so which is it's kind of
Yeah, we'll go into that.
a little different than
Well,
today.
so yeah, so
That's what I was
we'll
trying to
touch on
draw.
that actually real quick. So Kublai Khan, who followed in the same kind of steps as his father and grandfather Genghis Khan, they were really open to multiple um, religions, and they actually did not. They had tax exemptions for religions even back then. So
Similar.
yeah, very similar. So they were pretty open-minded to other religions, which is like in stark contrast when you consider that to what was it? What was that movie we watched where those missionaries went to Japan,
Oh
and it was
yeah.
like a major horrifying movie to watch these people just get like
Silence?
beat up,
Is
right?
that the one?
Silence?
The one where they go there and they get
Yeah,
like
missionaries in Japan and they get
captured. It
beat
was Spider-Man,
basically into submission.
right? The
Yeah.
one with what's it, Garfield in it.
So we hear all this like, cruel kind of destruction that the Mongol culture
Jono just
brought, but really they were super
solidified. That's what
open-minded.
it was.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, man. Um
It's a really good
so yeah,
feel-good movie.
yeah, really good, feel good. Whew, feels great. Makes you want to like go out and yeah, eat a tub of ice cream after watching that.
Right.
Eat sorrows. So, anyways, Marco Polo left for Asia with his dad, barely knowing him, and basically once he got to um, Eastern Asia, him and his dad like fell in like super favor with this ruler
Hmm.
of majority of Asia.
Which
Um,
which was kind of a blessing and a curse
right.
because he wouldn't let him leave.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So he formed a really strong bond with what they would call them the Great Khan. So whoever was the leader of the
Right.
Mongol people at that time, and he would dispatch them to China, Southeast Asia, all these different areas, and he made Marco Polo and his uncle and father tax collectors and
Hmm.
special messengers to the surrounding nations and countries.
Yeah, they became like
And he had
diplomatic. I can't think of the word for it. Like
yeah,
they
diplomatic
represented him to go different places
yeah,
and do these different things and teach people and represent him, which is
yep,
just bizarre. Can you imagine like that happening
foreigners.
today? Like we bring someone in, say Trump brings someone in from Mexico and he's like, "I like you, kid," and makes him
Yeah,
like his diplomatic representative and sends him around the states to like collect money for him. Like that.
Yeah, it's wild.
It
Like
is
imagine bringing someone from the Middle East to be our like
right.
representative.
Right.
Which
I was
that's
just
kind of
picking
cool.
someone that
I like
Trump
that.
wouldn't. Like it doesn't make.
But that shows you the diversity of the Mongol people, like having that inclusion. I kind of like that.
And then not letting him go. That also shows something about them.
Yeah. Yeah. But he had so much trust in them that he gave them this golden tablet that they called the Paiza, or Paiza.
Pizza.
And it authorized them, close to pizza, but it authorized them to make use of a vast network of imperial horses and lodging.
Why?
And basically it was like an official passport that allowed the Polos to travel throughout all of Asia. Basically not as like wandering merchants that are trying to like get riches, but they were trying to get riches at the same time. They were trading, they were amassing wealth, but they were also as like honored guests. So it was like this super well-connected, blessed merchant family that had the most eccentric hookup you could ever fathom as a merchant in that area.
Yeah.
For 20 years.
Well, they were in there because their whole journey was about 24 years when they left, when they got there. So he was there for about 17, and then their return journey was about 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, which we'll go into. Interesting return journey for sure.
So he did like diplomatic stuff everywhere that I read for about 3 years. Is he did that like hardcore diplomatic stuff, and the other stuff was just like they loved to hear his take on the world, like because they had been more places than a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. So the emperor liked to keep them around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So during his time there, though, it was interesting. Marco Polo had a very interesting perception of the sights and the things that he saw there. He oftentimes when he would see, and we'll go to when he wrote his book or when he was part of writing a book.
Right.
But when he was there in Europe or in Eastern Asia, a lot of the animals that he saw,
yeah,
he frequently misinterpreted what they were because they were so wild of a sight for him.
Yeah, he thought they were mythical.
Yeah. So he described, for instance, a giant sharp-clawed serpent that could swallow a man at one time. And later on, basically, that was found out to be a crocodile. Is what he was describing.
When I was reading through this stuff, this was actually one of the more interesting spots, and it's because we were in some areas that would have been like probably heavily influenced by some of this knowledge. And if you remember the statue that we saw when we were in Rome that had all the beasts on it from different areas, there were crocodiles on one.
On the starts with a T.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, the Trevi Fountain, and or no, I don't think it was there. It was the one with the 4 sides, the old horse arena that they had, that was by the Pantheon.
Yeah. Can't remember the name of that.
And the alligators looked like that description. They didn't look like.
Oh yeah, where they described.
Yes.
Different countries or different.
Right, and so those ones were off. Like they didn't look right. And she had pointed those out when we were looking at them. Totally. She's like, "Look at this. Does this look like any type of alligator or crocodile you've ever seen?" I'm like, "No, it doesn't." But it fits Marco's description.
Oh, dude, that's such a good point. That's a great point, Jordan. I like that. That's a great point. So he even described, he mistook and thought that rhinoceroses were actually unicorns because he was the first beast that he had
seen. The biggest, chubbiest unicorn ever.
The chubbiest, most stubby modeling unicorn that anybody's ever seen, and the grumpiest looking unicorn.
Yeah,
too.
Like that unicorn.
But yeah, he commonly associated rhinos as unicorns in his book. He thought they were just straight up unicorns.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah, but he documented lots of unfamiliar animals like monkeys and even elephants were still a rarity in Europe at that time, even though Hannibal and other people had brought elephants to Europe.
But you probably would have only really seen those had you been in like those big areas or with higher ups and stuff, like because they were kind of like for them.
Yeah.
So that it would be like us. Not everyone goes to a zoo, but we have pictures. But if we didn't have the pictures and we didn't have the zoo nearby us, we would just know people's descriptions.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So after spending 20 plus years in Europe. Polo, basically throughout that time, him and his father had multiple times requested to be able to return back to Europe because they had amassed quite a bit of wealth
Right.
and wanted to return home. But they could not. They could barely get it out of Asia. They could barely leave. The emperor had such a attachment to these individuals that the only way that they were able to get out was the Great Khan allowed them to escort the Mongol princess to Persia by sea
To be married to one of
and
the other cons.
to be married in Persia. Yeah, basically
Right.
to tie the continent
Which I
together.
found interesting because she didn't end up marrying the person she was supposed to. She married someone else. She
Right.
and I wonder if it loosely was tied to the fact that while they were doing that, the Khan died, kind of releasing them from having to go back. And it seems like she made that decision during that time too, to like do
I
something
think so.
else.
Yeah. There was. Yeah, I think that's probably a part of it. But this was interesting. They sent hundreds of people on the ship with Marco Polo and his family and this princess, and almost all of them died on the sea voyage,
Well,
except for
and
Marco Polo
they also had to give up a lot of the
and
riches
family.
that they'd amassed too on the way
Yeah, so I'll
back.
get to that. Yep. So the after surviving for greater than 20 years in Eastern Asia, surviving a crazy ship ride back where almost everybody dies except for them and the princess.
And the princess.
Um, and the princess.
There's always a
They ended up
princess in these
losing.
stories.
I know. I know.
This is
But
basically Star Wars. It's just on
got
land.
out, once they got out of the Mongol territory, they couldn't really rely on the Kublai Khan protection.
Right.
And so why they were passing through the Byzantine or the Trebizond, what is called Trebizond, modern day Turkey. The local government there robbed them of over 4,000 Byzantine gold coins,
Which is a
and so
lot.
that was a ton of their wealth. Yeah, I mean that's a huge amount of wealth right now,
A
obviously,
lot.
right? But despite that like crazy massive loss, they still had a significant fortune because what they had said is they concealed a lot of their wealth, their gems, and their gold. They sewed them into the lining of their coats, and that helped them basically pass off a
I
lot
did
of
not read
their
that. That's
wealth
pretty
out.
cool.
Yeah, so that helped them kind of sneak out with their goods a little bit. So once they finally got home, it was a kind of a crazy ride for Marco.
Yeah.
Um,
And
right?
then we kind of lose his story.
Well, and so one other thing, I'll tell a little bit about what he did once he got back. But
Right.
interesting thing, I don't know if you ever heard this, Jordan, but it was kind of rumored that Marco Polo, I'd heard this in the past too, that he was responsible for introducing like pasta
Yeah.
to Italy.
I'd never heard
Um,
that, but I read the myth.
yeah, so I'd heard that before, but basically it had already existed in Europe for centuries,
Right.
apparently before.
Yeah, it had been around for a while. But one thing that I did find interesting that he did bring back was
Yeah.
the idea of paper money,
Hmm.
which was pretty
Which is
crazy.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool that they were already using that in the Mongol
Yeah, like
Eastern Asia
way, way, way
areas.
back. Like
Hmm.
they're already using it, and he's like, "This is a good idea. It's way
Yeah,
better than tying gold inside my coat."
and then it caught on
Right.
after he introduced it. Not only that, he brought back kind of the description of coal. They hadn't been utilizing coal,
Hmm.
but they were in Eastern Asia. So then that in around a century later became really kind of boomed in Europe.
Right.
And then they also think he actually brought to um, Europe the idea of like complex checkpoints for couriers. So
Oh,
like mail systems were able to
yeah.
be
He
implemented after
was
that time.
he was fascinated. I read that he was fascinated by the postal system that was there, like how it worked. And I wonder how much of that organization we still use to this day. I mean, obviously
I
a lot of
know.
it's automated and stuff like that. Um, but I wonder.
Yeah,
Your wife says, "Your kids love you. Good night."
I know. I was assuming that's what they were saying. Um, so, but then also the other thing is this is just so fascinating about Eastern Asia. I'm so fascinated by the historical uh, capa- how early in history they were, like BC even, and their technological advancements far beyond and predating a lot of European advancements, and even maybe some African advancements as well. But it's really fascinating because the two areas, two continents were so far separated
Hmm.
that they couldn't really have complemented each other that much
Yeah.
or fed off of each other technologically wise. But another system that he brought back was they believe he introduced also the concept of eyeglasses to the
Oh,
West because he had seen that in Eastern Asia.
that's cool.
Yeah, which is
Well, another thing that
pretty cool.
I thought was interesting is like he did this whole journey and everything, but after they got back, and we'll go into more of what he did when he came back, is that that road was then not like nobody could do that again. Like because there was other things that happened and
Yeah,
wars and stuff that broke out, that Silk Road, if you will, was not passable by most people at that point. The way that they did it.
right. Well, and so yeah, it was impassable. The Silk Road is what
Hmm.
they called it.
Yeah.
And so the Silk Road was impassable because after Kublai Khan's rule was wiped out, the tribes basically revolted against the Mongol control
Right.
and then essentially became increasingly dangerous and cut off route for trade from China to the Mid East, even into Europe. Yeah.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's really kind of a crazy thing. And actually, I read a report about Marco Polo. They believe he never even left the Venetian territory for the last 2 decades of his life.
I wouldn't
After
want to
coming back,
either after that. Be like, I'm done.
I know. Yeah,
Bucket list,
yeah.
everything. It's
I'm out.
finished. Yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah,
then, I mean, he came back. He basically paid his way to fight war, got imprisoned, and then was telling his stories, and some dude was writing them down. Like, and
yeah.
that kind
So
of became the book that people know.
very strange. When he got back, um, he decided to fight in a war, a city war
Yeah.
of Venice after only being back for 3 years after this 20 plus year journey. After only being back for 3 years, he decided to be in a war where Venice fought a local Italian city state
Right.
called Genoa, Genoa, and got captured. Ended up going into prison, and he encountered a guy named Rustichello, and they were became buddies.
Right.
And this guy was a romance writer
Yep.
and a super talented romance writer. And so he ended up being Marco Polo's ghostwriter, essentially.
Right.
And he wrote down he dictated everything for him. And the two men completed the book after they were released from
Right.
prison, and it became a household, like super popular, and that gained him a ton of wealth also.
Which is interesting. So I was reading about this actually like shortly before we even came on here, was that there are no original copies of that book anymore. Um,
Oh god, that'd be so cool to have one.
all of them were hand transcribed, so the remaining copies that we have now, they're not always consistent in the details, but do
Hmm.
remain true to the stories. And because there was no printing press, so they were actually like, you know,
Right,
copying
transcribe.
line for line,
Right, same thing like the
and
Bible was,
that's
right?
all we have. And what's crazy too is that some of the stuff that he wrote about, like about China and that culture and everything, was the predominant knowledge that they had until the 19th century that they relied upon.
That's wild. That's wild. Well, and it's interesting because some of his Marco Polo's contemporaries dismissed a
Hmm.
lot of his stories as kind of lies,
Well, they called
and
it the Million
even
Lies.
some,
That's what
yeah,
they said
yeah,
about the book. They would that they jokingly called it that was his Million Lies, like that he couldn't have done all that.
which is really interesting because they thought that he was so, because in his normal life,
Hmm.
him and the ghostwriter they were so prone to exaggeration and kind of like flights of fancy or whatnot,
Right. Because he's a
that they would
romance
often
writer.
say
I mean, what do you
yes.
expect?
Well, because
He should have been
he
in
would say
prison with
like
someone better.
Yeah.
Like an action writer. Did they have those then yet?
But they didn't like that he would like implement himself in certain battle scenes. Like he would tell about him doing something in a battle scene and be like, "Yeah, right, dude.
You
You
didn't
didn't
do
have
that.
that like you didn't kill 10,000 people with a donkey jaw."
Well, there
You know,
is, I mean, there is some evidence to the naysayers. So
right.
there's no mention of Marco Polo that's been found in any historical Chinese record.
Well, or Mongol. Yeah.
Right. But on the other hand, the majority of historians are prone to believe that he did indeed make it to China because the cultural information he had was so accurate. And
Yeah.
a lot of people have used his journals to retrace his footsteps, and they said that the geography is incredibly accurate. In fact, because of that, he actually pushed the the world map as we know it today to become a thing. Like that people
Ooh,
would
that's
that
cool.
they would put together the world instead of just like look. I mean, when we were looking at art going through the Vatican and stuff, like they would be
Hmm.
like cities and stuff like that, but there wasn't really much global or everything that they knew. They have like Europe and stuff like that, but he was pushing for more, and that he kind of pushed that idea. But he was so accurate. So his accuracy speaks to the fact that he probably could have been there, but then there's no
Yeah.
record of them talking about him the way that he's talking about it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But for Marco's, you know, for his part in the whole kind of whether he actually did all the things that he
Hmm.
saw and whatever,
Yeah, because I think he did.
he never admitted to a single lie. Like
No,
he never said I lied about this. Even on his deathbed, he there's a famous line that he said, and he said, "I did not tell half of what I saw,"
right.
and that's a really
Well,
like
there was another one.
cool
There was a
quote to say.
short little thing that I was watching, and I'll post a link to the short. It's like the travels and life of Marco Polo in 3 minutes or less. And I'm trying to look for because there was more to the quote that they had than that, and it had to do with the lies. I'm looking for it. But you can keep talking and all.
Oh, okay. Um,
I thought I pasted it in here.
No, no, that's good. So yeah, anyways, it was eh, all that to be said, that's the life of Marco Polo basically. I mean, that's the brief overarching theme that we were able to find out about him. But I mean, the the type of life that is to explore basically a new world is what it would be like at that time, and to have that much experience at such an early age,
It's wild.
um, how could you not have and even when you're that young, everything you see is so new that how could you not have such a crazy vivid imagination? So even if it was like growing up, when you live in a really tiny house and you go back to the house when you're older, you remembered the house being so much bigger, and you
Right.
remembered all this like crazy extravagant stuff. Um, so I can't imagine him having maybe his not having some embellishment.
Yeah, I
Um,
found it here. It said the exactly same thing he did, but it went on, and this was the most interesting one that I saw. It was at the end of this short little video that I watched, and it said, "I did not write half of what I saw, for I knew I would not be believed."
right.
Which is just, I mean, he's just like, I can't say any more, or else they're really gonna think I lied.
Well, and maybe he did see some stuff that he couldn't
Yeah,
say,
I thought
you
another
know?
interesting thing was he wrote that he could speak that he knew 4 languages, and it said that then when they came back, like they were speaking a different language, like they had even a trouble speaking their native tongue when they came back, and they kind of thought that they were kind of cuckoo in the head when they came back. Um, but he wrote that he knew 4, but they never mentioned what for at all.
Oh,
And
really?
but historians have kind of gone back and looked at it, and they surmised that he spoke Mongolian, Persian, Arabic, and Turkish, but not Chinese.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the Mongols were in control of China, right?
Right.
But he probably didn't spend the majority of his time in China.
Mm-mm.
Um,
Yeah, and a lot of these were probably would have been like trade languages or known as trade languages at the time.
right. Yeah, totally. So yeah, so guys, that's Marco Polo in a short little short little thing.
Marco.
Um, Polo.
Fish out of water.
Oh man, classic. Okay, so we're gonna hit you guys with a couple little random stuff we learned about this week real quick, and then we'll wrap up with some TILs and shower thoughts for you.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk to you about this real quick.
Yeah.
I've been told that when we talk about science that we sound smart and that people enjoy it. I don't know if the former is true, but I'm glad that the latter is for some people at least. I got in a conversation with my son this week, and we were talking about time and light. So we
Love it.
started to do a little bit of delving into some thought experiments and then looking up some of what's going on. Because I was like, he was like, why can't we go faster than the speed of light? Why is that there? Like, why do people think that that's a limitation? I said, well, we just
Mm-hmm.
think it is. Maybe it's not. And
Right.
so we were looking it up and looking up some experiments that were done. And I have a link for this that people can go read if they really want to nerd out on it. But it had a quote in it that kind of blew my mind. The faster something travels, the more massive that it gets, and the more time slows, until you finally reach the speed of light, at which point time stops altogether, and so does movement. So, because if you have no time, you can't move anymore. And so they've done experiments on this with photons and particles and stuff where they reach a certain point which they can't push them any faster and they become so massive in their small form that they can't go any faster and they measure that at the speed of light and they can't push them any faster. And they did this when Einstein started theorizing about this stuff. They did this with different atomic clocks and they sent them on different planes all around the world. And when they brought them all back together, they were all different.
Right.
And it was
Yeah.
like, what the heck? Like so then we kind of got into this whole like nerding out like, okay, what if you can't because space becomes time or time becomes
So
movement?
it is obviously true, right? That at speed and time are related, but obviously light is and or are photons, and they are moving
Hmm.
at the speed of light,
Right.
and so it's not. So did you say if you reach the speed of light, you wouldn't be able to move?
No, no,
Is that
no.
what you said?
If you can't go faster than it, because then time would cease to, it would be so massive at that scale that time would slow all the way to a stop. That's why you can't go faster than the speed
I
of light.
gotcha.
And so
I
then,
always
and so then you wouldn't be moving at all. So that's why you can't. There's a physical limit
Well,
to it.
but
Theorize.
it's yeah, theoretically. But then you get to the concept of what if you're not necessarily moving at a certain speed, but you're bending space, right? And then
True. Yeah, and
your
but
traveling goes
but then
faster than the speed of light,
you're not
essentially.
breaking those laws. But the experiment that kind of blew Michael and I's mind was this, was that if you, and it's just a thought experiment because you can't do this, it would not work. But if you strapped a torch to the front of a rocket and sped that rocket up as fast as it would go, would the light, if you were looking at that torch coming at you, would the light that the torch is giving off be traveling faster than the speed of light because it's starting from a moving point?
Okay.
And
So if you're looking at a rocket,
with a
the rocket's
torch
traveling
with a
towards you
torch strapped to the front that's
with a
emitting
torch strapped to the front.
that's emitting light and it's coming
Yeah.
towards you, say going 1,000, 2,000 miles an hour. Okay, it's coming towards you. The light that you see from the
Well, the light
torch,
would get to you first. Yeah.
yeah, it would get to us first, but is that
Yeah,
light
for sure.
now traveling faster than the speed of light because you've pushed it faster as it's coming
No.
towards you? So yeah, the answer is no, and so that means
No.
there is a limit, and so you can't push something faster than the speed of light. That's how they proved
Yeah.
and that's where the theory of relativity was born, was with that thought experiment, which is just kind of
Well,
simple but cool.
on that same note, interesting. Read an article 7 hours ago
Yeah.
about on that same note about a Georgia doctor that they apparently just found, and she was killed. Um, and they found her in a ditch, dead, killed by a pack of dogs.
Wait, what? Back up.
What?
Was she traveling at the speed of light?
So they suspect she might have been traveling at the speed of light. And No, that's my deadpan humor right there. None of
Yeah.
those situations. That's a terrible thing to be laughing at this poor lady dying from a pack of
Although
dogs.
it's just
But
not
the
something that's very
autopsy
common.
confirmed.
It's not
Yeah,
very
I
common to be
know.
like a pack of dogs, huh? That's how she
Yeah.
went.
But a patrol was out, like a police car was out on patrol and spotted a car over on the wrong side of the road in Georgia. And then its engine was still running and the door was open. And so they
What?
suspect that there was probably like dogs in the road and she didn't want to hit them. And so just a pack of like wild dogs. Apparently, this is a thing
Don't
in
get out of your
states
cars, folks.
like Georgia. I didn't know this, but in certain states, they have like rabid wild dogs
That's
out
why.
and about.
I know they have hogs. Like,
I mean, I know like in other countries, like obviously in South America, and I've seen them in like Russia and China. There's like wild dogs, and obviously dingoes in Australia, right?
well, I mean, obviously,
They'll get your
it's
babies.
like half the animals they have are dingoes.
I know. But that's just like a kind of a sobering thought. Like, oh my gosh, this
Yeah,
is so terrible, so terrible.
seriously.
Yeah.
Um,
So just on the same note, I wanted to throw that out there.
um, okay. So the other thing that I had from space this week, because
Yeah.
I like space. We like space, folks. Is that an asteroid snuck past satellite on Monday? I don't know if it was this Monday. I think it was this Monday. It was Monday or the prior Monday, and one of the closest flybys on record. So I don't know if people know this, but asteroids fly by us pretty quickly or pretty often. We just don't see them. They're small. But this one was the size of a truck, and it flew by at about 4,350 miles up. So the moon is
Oh, what from a satellite? You said
it was from the Earth. That's how far away from the Earth it was.
4,300 miles from the Earth.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
not far because the moon is 239,000 miles.
So basically, take the United States and
Yep.
flip it straight up, and then just a couple miles more than that,
A little bit, probably
and you'd
twice,
have the asteroid.
almost twice that. Well,
Hmm.
almost a little under than
No.
twice. Be like,
Yeah, under.
yeah, that's what I meant. You know what I meant. It's really complicated. I don't know if you'd get it.
You might not get it, but
Anyway,
I'll
it
get
went
it.
over the Pacific Ocean, and it was
Oh,
one of the.
Arthur Salander said Africa. Take Africa and flip it up.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, but isn't that wild? And then
That is wild.
one last thing I have for space, and this has to be said, is that Tom Cruise is working with NASA right now to shoot a
Okay,
movie.
I heard about this.
He's he's
What
he's
is he
working
doing?
with NASA and SpaceX to shoot a movie in actual space.
Why?
I here's my
Like
theory, and
CGI is just
I think that this fits perfectly. I don't think there's any other answer except for that he gets to go to space and someone else gets to pay for it because he does his own stunts.
that's interesting. That's interesting. I I I don't know if this is what I wonder. Tom Cruise has done some cool stunts, right? He did that hole where he grabbed onto that plane and was hanging off of it while it was going. But I don't know if he's as special as he thinks he is. Like, I
I don't
don't know
know.
if he's an astronaut
NASA's already
quality.
said like they really want people to go and they need people to have money to do it, and so they're willing to work with them. And
But
it look
why do they
and in
really?
2021 is when SpaceX has said that they will begin commercialized space, like regular people can go up. And so there's no slot, there's no like plot movie idea yet or anything. He's just working on this idea. And think about this though, it could be the first real motion picture done in space. Like how well would that probably do? Like it's going to be
Yeah.
profitable the first time.
So but you got to think about like, okay, maybe he goes up to space, then what? His camera crew's like, ah, crap, I got to go up to space now because Tom wants me to take film him. Like I don't know. I'm not sure how
I
good that video
Artie, I think
camera crew.
you do have a point. I don't know how much that would make a difference. Like theoretically, yes, we could use space rocks and slingshot them around our planet in order to reposition us towards the sun. I don't know that it would make as big a difference. I mean, technically, if you jump, you're displacing the Earth too, but we'd all have to do it, and it still wouldn't do anything. And this was only the size of a truck. I don't think we want something that big getting that close to do that. This
Mm,
might knock the moon out,
yeah,
and I've seen like tests of that, and that's not a good situation for any of us.
yeah, it'd be tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be tricky.
Anyway,
So
yeah.
something about real quick here, testing and everything like that that goes lately for the virus has been improving as far as capacity goes in the
Yeah.
U.S. lately, which is awesome. But something that China did, which pulled out a pretty big move lately, just today they ordered 11 million residents of Wuhan, all of Wuhan, they're retesting as of now.
Because they're
11
getting
million
called out.
residents.
They're getting called out right now by a lot of people saying your numbers are BS, communist China. Like they're
Yeah.
literally calling them that and saying we think that, and then they're like pinpointing the different areas that are tied to communist China, and those are the hardest hit. Like, okay, I think you know.
Well, they have apparently a bunch of new outbreaks that they're finding in Wuhan after they had said, we've had over a month and plus of no infections, and now apparently there's enough concern that they are testing
You
11
think?
million people.
You think? Yeah.
Kind of wild.
Yeah,
Kind of
they
wild.
can maybe control what they tell their citizens. They cannot control the rest of the free world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the problem. I have one TIL, and it's
Okay. Oh,
hilarious.
I got a couple. Hit me with your TIL.
Okay, today I learned that John Carmack, does anyone know who John Carmack is? Founder of
Mm-hmm.
id Software, made Quake, Wolfenstein, Doom,
Legend.
all that kind of stuff. He did a lot of stuff for Oculus. Now he's kind of taking a back seat for VR. Was arrested at the age of 14 for helping a group of children steal Apple II computers using a mixture of thermite and Vaseline to melt windows to break into the building.
Whoa. That's legendary.
Starting his
That's
war with
impressive.
Apple early.
Oh my gosh. That's so impressive. Dang. Um, oh, okay. So TIL that I got for you. Okay, this was really interesting to me. So all those out there listening, I don't know if you guys played Halo growing up, but I was a
My kids played Halo yesterday.
hardcore Halo 1 fan. And then Halo 2, I was pretty into. Halo 3, I didn't get that much into because I started college around that time. But in 2007, when Halo 3 was released, it broke records for video game sales, making $170 million on the first day. Film executives blamed Halo for a 27% drop in the box office that week
Good job, Halo.
because
Good job.
because of Halo's
I was
release. I was
there.
like,
I played that
that's
on opening day.
impressive.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I was in college, so I didn't get to play that game at that point.
I think I
But that's
actually
impressive
pre-ordered that game.
drop. Um, okay, next TIL I have. This was really interesting. So people are looking like, is the NBA coming back? NFL looks like it might be coming back. MLB might be coming back. Everybody's talking about games, sports, yada yada yada. And I did not know this. So Shaquille O'Neal apparently, in all of his career, only made one 3-point shot during his entire career.
Seriously.
That's wild.
It
I had
doesn't
no
it
idea.
doesn't baffle me because I've watched that guy try to make free throws quite a bit,
Yeah.
and he can't even hit
Basically a
those.
layup king.
Yeah, which
All
is
right,
funny because
shower thoughts,
at the
peoples.
3 point line, that dude could grab the ball, extend his arm up, and fall over and hit the 3 point shot. I mean, he's not even human. He's
Seriously. Okay, shower thoughts.
okay.
I'm gonna throw the first one out there.
Go.
Um, so when you think about it, basically, massive glass skyscrapers we see in cities around the world are actually the world's largest sandcastles.
Super true. Yeah, I saw that
Right?
one and I thought, I'm afraid to say that because my dad's gonna correct me as an engineer and tell me that it's not predominantly sand anymore or something.
Yeah, silicon, whatever.
Yeah, I don't
An extra polymer, but
something.
maybe in America.
They're sandcastles.
Other countries, they're sandcastles.
Yeah. If you lose a toe, trimming your toenails becomes 10% easier.
That's awesome.
See, guys, statistics can make you happy.
Statistics. Okay. Having everyone in front of you go 3 to 5 miles per hour under the speed limit must be one of the most annoying parts of being a cop.
It's true.
Because everybody does. I know as soon as you have a cop behind you, you're like, oh, I gotta go speed limit.
Yeah.
But that'd be obnoxious.
Yeah. If you pretend to not see someone you hate and they also pretend to not see you, that's a lot of cooperation between two people that don't like each other.
Very good point. Very good point. I like that. Now they can be friends.
Yeah,
Um,
they have the same interest.
we live in really unusual times when bank tellers feel relieved when a customer enters a bank wearing a mask.
So true. It's like I went to Costco the other day, you have to wear a mask, and
Yeah.
I was like, also, sunglasses are optional. And so you're like basically can look like you're robbing the place and nobody's gonna do anything. Like
Wait. Optional. Why would I don't understand You
I'm
wouldn't
just
be
saying they
allowed to wear
don't
them.
say you can't wear them. So if you
Could you
go
ever
in,
not wear?
no, but when you wear a mask too, like the mask
Oh, okay.
is
Gotcha.
required, and then you wear sunglasses, and then if you have a hat on, like you look like you're coming
Yeah.
to like rob the place,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
no one even gives you a second look. They're like, oh, he's normal. Like,
That's true.
uh, monitoring incoming nuclear strikes might be the only job you're glad it's boring.
Oh, very glad that's boring. Very glad. Um, so the phrase "I heard it on the news" is not a reliable explanation
It
anymore.
hasn't been for a while, but people now
It's not a
recognize
reliable
that.
source. That's sad.
For something that is 70% water, humans have very poor fire resistance.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Okay, so I made this comment. I'm gonna say something gross. Um, well,
Cover your
okay.
ears.
Let me say the shower thought first.
Okay.
So getting a hair stuck in your mouth has to be a million times more gross when you're bald, right? Right. But
Yes.
something that happens to an individual, even if you're bald, is, and it happens to me, is sometimes I'll like, snort a little bit and I feel something in the back of my throat and then it's a hair. But not only do I do that, but sometimes I find a hair in my teeth, like in between the wedges of my teeth. But that hair can sometimes be a nose hair that's come back down my nose into my teeth. And then I feel like I'm actually like, I have a hair stuck in my teeth from my nose.
What if it's just really acrobatic and it went this way?
These little jumping
Yeah, it's
hairs.
just like because I
Oh
mean, like
man.
my brother-in-law had one, had a like an eyelash go out and come back in and went into the duct on his eyeball, like
Yeah, they
straight in,
can they
like
can they can grow in and curve in. Yeah,
yeah, that
it's
sounds
gross.
horrible. Alarm clocks are maybe the only device that make you mad in both scenarios, whether they work or not.
Oof. That's true. That's true. If a small business is family owned, it seems friendly. If a large business is family owned, it seems super corrupt.
So true. Oh, I don't know why, but it seems true. I don't. Yeah, maybe because it just is. I heard it on Alex Jones. That's what Arthur said. Yeah, that's super credible either. Some of the things are just really,
Some things are true though. Some
yeah,
things he
they're
says are
like
true.
scary and eerily
Yeah.
accurate, and then all of a sudden he
Hmm.
talks about clockwork elves and just jumps off the
Yeah, wizard
bandwagon,
people.
and yeah, it's just like, okay, okay,
All
okay,
right, one more shower thought each.
okay, go.
Um, if a sloth were to clap, it will always sound sarcastic.
True. Hey, you, do the slow clap. It's like that scene on Zootopia. If no one has seen
Yeah,
that movie,
the
at
DMV.
least look up the DMV scene from Zootopia. You will thank me and them for making it.
It's classic.
Um, Being proactive is rarely rewarded because if your actions avoid a tragedy, there is no tragedy to prove your actions were warranted.
So true. Such as people being in lockdown.
Yep.
Yep. Crazy stuff. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening about Marco today. We appreciate it.
Go.
And hope you all have a fantastic week. We're excited to talk to you again next week. and we'll hit you up soon. So let us know what you like, what you don't like, if you have any other questions, and
Find us on
have a
YouTube's,
great
the Instagrams.
weekend.
Come follow us here.
Instagram, like us on Facebook, YouTube,
If you want to hear us talk
Instagram,
about
Twitter.
something
Not Twitter.
and
Don't do
butcher
Twitter.
it, let us know. We're
Yeah.
totally happy to butcher any subject you have.
All right, guys.
All right.
Peace out.
See
Have a good week.
ya.